Hello, everybody. Brady Cameron, the marketing game changer here, and you're here, and I'm here, so we can now begin this thing. And today, I posted a notice earlier that I'd be here at 6 o'clock tonight and this evening. And what we're going to do is actually talking about. This is actually going to be about a 12, believe it or not, about a 12 section. Um, Program I'm going to talk to you about. Nothing to sell. You have nothing to buy. Not going to be no offers. Nothing. I'm just going to give you 12 free sessions about how to become a real life wizard in your life and create the reality that you actually want in your life. So, with having said that, let me get underway. Um, oh, one more thing before we start. I'm having a new website built. It's going to be at bradycameron.com. Bam, easy to remember. So as soon as that thing is absolutely, totally, and actually live, I'll let you know. Now, when I was young, probably before high school, we're talking probably fifth, sixth, seventh grade, probably fifth, sixth grade, is when I really started noticing the differences between where I lived and how I lived, and the differences in my family and the differences in other people's family. And, at least I did. I kind of took the perspective that other people had it so much better than I did, and so many people had so much better family than I did, and better friends even, and that I personally wasn't living up to what I would like to see myself living up to, and that I started to figure, well, you know what? Maybe it's me. Maybe um, I'm the reason for this problem, and maybe I'm actually creating it at some level. I didn't know how I was creating it, and I didn't even know why I was creating it, but I did entertain the thought from something that I'd heard on a television show. I don't even remember what it was, unfortunately, but it was something that one of the actors said to a complaining friend. Well, oh no, I remember what it was. I don't remember the show, but the friend was saying that they wanted to move and get out of California, and they didn't want to live in California no more because they didn't think California was any good for them, and that they have all types of problems in California, and that it just doesn't work for them. So they said they were going to go. I think they said they were going to move to like Chicago or something like that. And one of the other friends looked at them and says, "Well, let me ask you a question." And the friend said, "What?" And he goes, who do you think are creating all these problems that you're experiencing in California? Well, other people are, obviously. This is a very objective thing. I'm not doing it. And so the friend goes, well, I'll bet that you'll be back within a year or two after you move, wherever you move. Well, why do you think that? I said, because you're going to find out that no matter where you move, all you're doing is moving your problems with you, because your problems are perceptional. Your problems are about you and how everybody else is causing your demise, or how everybody else is messing you over, or how you can't trust nobody else, or any and all of these things. They're all you. And I really believe I was a little too young to and inexperienced to really grasp that idea that, wow, am I causing my own problems? Is it really all because of me? Is it because I seem like, it seemed to me at one time, my mother was against me, it seemed like at one time, even though she was a great mom. We had our little period to our little bout, like most parents do and children do. Of course, we reconciled, but felt like my stepfather, he didn't really like me, and I think growing up, he really never did, because I was a son of another man, and he didn't like that man. And I think sometimes he came after me aggressively, and I would respond aggressively, or hell, now that I sit back and look at it, maybe it was all me causing all that hassle and all that problem between him and I wasn't giving him a chance because maybe I was the son of another man. Okay, something to chew on. And so I remember, I think I was, please don't quote me on this one, but I think it's about 15, maybe 16. And I remember reading a book by Anthony Robbins, who I'd actually seen on a late night Anthony Robbins commercial, power your inner success, be your ultimate person, be this, do that, whatnot. And I was like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I wonder if I could do that, because I was poor. I had no resources whatsoever. I was in we lived in about an 18, I think my parents paid about 30 grand, 35 grand for the house that we lived in Indianapolis. It was a small little place, although it was like 1, 2, 3, 4. It was 4 bedrooms. Okay. And you say, what? 4 bedrooms? Yeah. But I mean, you have to understand, I think the whole house was like 1,100 feet, 1,200 feet maybe. Small, and most of the houses were just like that too. So but there was 1, 2, 4, 5. At one time there were 6 of us living in there, and then sometimes here and there relatives or friends would come to stay because they were having a hard time and whatnot. So it was not a big place. It was small, and it was even smaller when I went back about 20 years later. I went back to the house that I was raised in and grew up, and I got there and I looked at that house and I was like, and I actually looked at it, I'm like, God, that looks a lot smaller than what I remember. And then when I actually went into the house, I was like, oh my God, this place is so small. I mean, my bedroom, seriously, when I entered back into it 20 years later, it looked like a matchbox. I mean, it's like literally, you could have, I literally, even at that time, back then when I was a kid, I had one twin size bed, one small dresser, and some little bitty tiny knickknacks, and then of course, toys or posters on the wall, stuff like that. That was it, and that's all I really had the room for, except for eventually my stepfather made my older sister and we shared what was called a Jack and Jill bedroom. So our bedrooms actually connected, and my stepfather actually went in there and just made it into a little closet. Nothing, great, built some plywood or this or that, put a bar in it, but it was great because I got some extra room and I could put different stuff. I mean, it was really cool, but still, it was like 6 foot by maybe 5, 6 feet, something like that. It was small, so maybe 4 or 5 feet. So, but anyway, it's kind of funny how things may seem adequate to you back then when you're like, God, I don't really need that much room, or geez, this place is huge, and then you grow up and you go back and look at it and you're like, oh my God. It kind of shows you how your perception about, your environment, and the same way with people, you meet them 10, 15, 20 years later, and you kind of pick up right where you left off, because that's what your perception of the reality is. Like, okay, I knew this person, and 10 years ago we did this and this and this and this, and then you meet them and their reality has completely changed. You still get along with them very well, and in some ways you feel like, man, hey, it's my good friend again. We lost paths, and in some ways you start to feel like, I still really like this guy or this girl, but it feels different. It's not the same. It's not the same. And that's when that old saying came up: you can never go home, or you can never go back again. And a lot of people, I think, including me at that time, thought that meant like, well, I mean, I can't ever go visit my mother, or I can't ever go back and see my mom, or what's going on with that, And then I finally figured out what it meant is that once you leave officially, and then whatever happens, and you have to come back to it to try to move in, or you're doing good and you're just coming back for a visit, whatever, okay, it's not the same. It's just, it doesn't feel the same to you any longer. So I really began to realize that at a very early age. And I also began to realize that my stepfather, I never knew my real father, never met him, seen him, talk to him, nothing. I wouldn't know him if he came up, stood next to me. But my stepfather, who actually pretty much raised me from the time I was about, I think it was about 3 or 4, I think it was, till up till the time that I was about 18, in that vicinity, but I kind of left home a little earlier than 16. But I was here and there, But what really ended up happening was I started to notice that people were driving different cars. Like they were driving really nice, fancy cars, and then other people were driving old junkers. And then I noticed that there was everything in between that would have been, somewhat considered like middle class, And I just kind of thought to myself, I was like, I wonder why some people can afford these nice cars. Some people have these other not so nice cars, and some people have what's in between. And I was always told by my parents and by family and by friends that rich people were bad and poor people were good, and the people that were in between were somewhat good and somewhat bad. And it was weird, really weird, and it didn't make any sense to me, And then I actually made a friend, and I went over to his house, and they had a house that was about probably 3 times the size of ours, and his dad owned his own insurance company, and his insurance company was actually in the outside garage. It was actually in the garage outside. And I was like, and they parked in the driveway, and they had a big canopy put over the driveway to protect the cars from the sun and the rain, snow, and so forth. We're in the Midwest, Indiana at that time, So I was like, that's weird. And his dad says, oh yeah, I run my whole office, and it was set up like an office. It looked like an office when you walked into it, because people were coming in there to make their payment for their insurance programs. I think it was auto insurance at that time. Could be other insurance forms, I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I remember it being auto. And he had some books, a bunch of books, and I was like, what are these books, And then comes to find out they were like business books, entrepreneur books, how to run a successful small business, things of that nature. And I was like, hey, can I borrow one of these books? What would you recommend for a person my age who wants to get a good overview of what it's like to become an entrepreneur? And he handed me a book at that time, and I believe it was Think and Grow Rich. And he goes, you got to read this one. This one's great. So I did. And so we go from there. And that gave me a little bit of an auto adjustment. And then, of course, the Anthony Robbins book that I had read was already in my mind, too. And then the fact that I was seeing Anthony Robbins on television like almost every freaking night, I was like, there must be something to this, And so I found out how much money his dad, this father made, who had the insurance business in his garage, how much money he made and how much they lived off of. And like every time he pulled out his money, which, the family was coming to him and he'd pull out money, he always had at least like $1,000, $2,000 on him. And I just simply never seen that kind of money. I didn't even know that existed, because my stepfather, he worked at Frito-Lay's, the potato chip company, and he worked hard and he worked long hours. And I can remember him working 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day. The man was dedicated to the work, dedicated to taking care of his family, and he was a good man in that way, but he just he didn't make a lot of money though. God, I think it was back then he was making like $7 or maybe $6, $7 an hour, maybe 8. And, my remember my mother telling me that was really good, that was pretty good. And I was like, why we live this way? Because sometimes we would get utilities shut off. There wouldn't be enough food. I mean, there was always problems, so I mean, every day it seemed. So, that got me. And then when I went to my friend's house and I'd stay over there for a few days with him, how they lived, how they talked to each other, how they talked about things was completely different. The furniture was nicer. The home was way better. It's just everything was different, And I really started getting into this thing about, okay, so I asked him, the guy who, I can't remember his name. It's so terrible. I heard he died probably 10, 15 years ago, something like that. I remember asking him, did you come from money? Because I was taught that if people have money, it's because they came from money. There was no other reason. And he goes, oh, no, 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 no. My dad was poor. My mom was poor. I was poor growing up. And he said, I just made a mental mind shift that I wasn't going to be poor. And I said, what was the biggest thing that determined if you were actually going to make it or not when you were trying to make it up? And he goes, the biggest thing that made me get through it was having the fire under me or inside of me that I do not want to live the way that I was brought up. I do not want to bring my children up the way I was brought up. And I do not want my children to think that they're limited by something else out there, that they're only limited by their own perceptions, their own beliefs, and their own ability to take action and to see it through, to stay through thick and thin, no matter what, and do it. Because, the only way to really know if you can do something is just do it. And if you don't do it, you'll never know. You got to stick. You got to stay. So that was a big influence on me. That really hit me hard coming from a guy like him. And so a lot of times, not a lot of times, most of the time that I deal with mom and pop health club owners, a small business owner, mom and pop, who want to try to get over $1 million a year, but for whatever reason they can't. And, they always think that either the reason's out there and the cards are stacked against them and that the government's working against them, and the other businesses around them are just killing them. And then sometimes I get that honest owner. And by the way, not to say that those other owners who told me that were being dishonest. They just either wasn't informed or they were in denial. And they're both things are very real. Being in denial is very real. It seems very real. It is very real. You feel it to your core. Because we don't want something to be our fault. We don't want something to be because of us. It's got to be somebody else. And a lot of times when I talk to them, if they didn't tell me those things, then they just tell me straight out, I don't know how to increase my rate of return in my investment in my marketing. Or I'm not even really doing any marketing. I'm trying to do it through word of mouth or something like that. And right away, my spidey senses go off. No, 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 no. We got to do this and this, 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 and this, because a long time ago it was told to me that a business without a sign is a sign of no business. Period. You can have the greatest program or the greatest service ever. You beat everybody hands down. It's not even a competition. But if nobody knows what you got or how to get it or where to find it, it ain't gonna do any good. You're just gonna be stuck with the world's greatest product or service, but ain't no one buying it, so it ain't really doing nothing for you. That's why you've got to get out there and get that done. And one of the things to do is one of the first lessons we're talking about in these 12 videos is simply going to be perception determines reality. All right. Now, that kind of sounds like a play on words or a word hustle or something like that, but it's really actually not. Because how you perceive something, how you look at something and you perceive what the problem is or what the situation is, or, what the obstacles may be, whatever that might be to you, it's very real. It seems very, very, very real. It's the real deal Holyfield to you. However, though, if you flip the question and you just simply ask, okay, how can I make this happen? Well, one of the things that I always tell my mom and pop health club owners or small business owners is you have to think of your marketing that you're going to do to get a prospect, like if it's business to business, let's say. How does that business receive their prospects? What's the open line of communication that business that you want to attract is using for their prospects they attract to communicate with them. And if you can figure that out, which I'm going to give you one right here, is that you simply just go through the businesses that you want to do business with, get the contact information, their email, name of the owner or contact person, then you write an email to them. Now, of course, the email does have a specific structure to it that you have to follow. And if you follow that, I even hook a video sales letter to it so that if they read the email, if you want to know more without having to contact me to find out if this is right for you or not, just simply watch this video. Simply watch this video that I've connected, that I've supplied for you. Watch it. If you like it, you think it's for you, let me know by texting me or calling me, or reply back to this email. So I give them 3 simple options, 3 easy ways to do it, but I don't push them right into, trying like, call. I give them an option to say, hey, is this really for me? And of course, the video that they're watching, I'm teaching them stuff. I'm teaching them real stuff they can take, they can use right now in their business to start making money and turn things around. That makes them start to know me, like me, and trust me, because I gave without asking them for any money. I'll ask them, would you like for me to send you some prospects for free? I'll pay for it so you can see how my system can actually work and work for you, and you can do it. Real life demonstration. It's a funny concept, helping people by actually helping them. Who would have knew, right? But of course, that's the way I always was taught how to sell. And I sold quite a bit of stuff over my life. Everything's from water conditioners, vacuum cleaners. Yeah, I was that guy at your door, knocked. Although I figured out a way to get out of knocking on doors there after a while, and I figured out a much smarter way. What I would do is I would pay a couple kids to go out to some neighborhoods, and I would have them drop these flyers off, and they said basically something like, hey, we got a free case of soda for you, and if you are interested in getting your favorite soda beverage, a whole case of it for free, just simply call me at this number, and I'll tell you what you got to do. And it's very simple, it's very easy. And people, not all, but a lot called, and I set a lot of appointments out of that. In fact, I started setting so many appointments, I couldn't run them all. So I took those appointments and I gave them to other salesmen, and they paid me for the lead to go run it. And oh, no. I would share the leads with them because I had so many, and they would go sell. And when they would sell, of course, I know I got access to all the books. They would sell, and they would pay me a commission for going out and running that. And I think I got something like 10% of what their commission was. It was something like that, but it was a good gig. So it paid me a nice little profit. Plus, I could pay my help who went out and set those flyers out, and didn't have to come directly out of my own funds. It was out of funds that I had earned, extra funds. So it was great because I was still selling too. But that's a little tip for you to do if you're selling, business to business. And of course, if you're selling business to person, then the bottom line is you've got to have some way to get a pattern interrupt from whatever it is that they're in. Like they're scrolling on Facebook, they're just having a good time, blah, 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 blah. They don't know you from sunshine. It's nighttime there, and they're all like, doo-doo-doo-doo. And then all of a sudden, they see a picture of a pretty girl or a dog with Einstein hair, or maybe a hot dog talking to a hamburger, and they're having a little communication between them or something. And they stop for a second. They're scrolling because it catches their attention. Now you're actually catching their attention at this point. So they look at that and they're like, oh, that's very interesting, or that's funny, ha ha ha, or whatever. But for a split second, you get a chance for their eyes to leave that picture and glance up to your headline. And if it glances up to your headline and you enter the conversation that they have already been having going on in their own mind, they're going to click it. And if they click it, you're in. So maybe your offer catches their attention because you're addressing their problem that they need to get rid of. And they're like, oh my God, yeah, I got that. And well, here it is. Boom, click. They read the whole thing, and then they reply to your ad. So now there's a lot of other variables that go into getting them to respond to your ads, but I also teach you that too, because to be honest with you, writing a successful ad is like part science, part art, but it's full psychology, 100%. So But being able to change your reality and determine your reception of it is huge, because if you look at the problem and you get stuck in the problem, you're going to stay stuck in the problem, and you're not going to get anywhere, and you're not going to accomplish anything, and you're just going to be sitting there basically digging a hole, going deeper down this rabbit hole that is a problem, and you're getting lost and putting all your effort, energy deeper into that hole, that rabbit hole. And then pretty soon you happen to look and you're like, oh my God, I'm so far down, I'll never get up. And then you get discouraged and you quit. So it's better whenever a problem comes on to you, is to go, how can I solve this? Okay, I don't know how to market. Well, I better get ready. I better get started learning how to market. Or I better hire somebody who knows how to market to get me through this, and not only do the marketing that and show me how to do it, but also teaches me the marketing so that I'm learning how to do it while I go. So I'm just not learning how to fish for a day or depend on someone else to do for me. I can actually do it myself for the rest of my life, or I can farm it out to somebody else to do my marketing, but I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about, so they can't rip me off. Because if they say something that ain't right or something, I'm like, that ain't right, you'll know. And then you're like, get out of here. And then when you get someone's talking real to you, authentically to you, and know their stuff, and you're like, okay, yeah, this person knows what they're doing. This is who I can count on and depend on, and they're going to get this done for me. So, but you always want to know. And the first thing is to learning is checking your own perception. Am I the problem here? What am I doing that's causing this problem? What am I not doing that's causing me not to come up with a way to solve this problem? And those are hard questions. Hard, because sometimes you got to go, it's me. It's me. All right. I got to solve this. And so now it's time to shut up, put up, and find the answer to the problem, or bring somebody in, a consultant, a coach who can help you solve the problem and show you the way and teach you so that you can do it forever. And you can show other people how to do it. Heck, one day you might become a consultant of marketing and selling yourself because you learn so much and can do and perform and make so much happen. Possible, if you want to. So basically, always check the perception of how you're seeing things. If you always think things as somebody else's thought or somebody else's problem, take a look at yourself. What role did I play in this? What role did I make this happen? In what way did this happen and I'm a part of it? In what way didn't I do what I was supposed to do in order to get these results? And those questions they weigh on your mind, and they do bother you, and they can also mess up your perception, and they can begin to make you think that the whole world's out against me and nothing is ever going to go for me and nothing ever happens for me. And that's a bad perception to have. And you know what? The reality is, bad things happen to really good people, just like bad things happen to really bad people and to every type of person in between that. Bad things happen. All right. Now, when bad things happen, and you really feel like you're getting dealt a bad hand in life, that's when you really just got to stop and ask yourself, how can I improve this? What did I do to cause this? What part did I play in this? What thing did I do or didn't I do in order to make my business successful, or to make my relationship successful, or to make a successful relationship happen? What role am I playing in it, instead of just copping out and blaming everybody else for my lack of business, for my lack of success, or for my lack of having a relationship, or for my lack of having a growth, or for my lack of having a good family communication, or for my lack of knowing what to do at the right time. When you just blame other people for the stuff that's happening to you, you're just passing the buck down the road. And when you just pass the buck down the road, it's not going to do you any good whatsoever, because you're still going to be right where you are. It's like I said, a lot of people will move away from where they were raised or they grew up or whatnot, thinking that if they go to another city or another state, that things are going to get better and they're going to do awesome. Now, sometimes, you know what, that works to a degree, to some degree. It doesn't always work to a full degree. Sometimes it changes a person's life completely. But then other times, people who are bringing their problems with them, meaning they are the creator of their problems and they're trying to move away from the problems, your problems just moved along with you. Soon a year down the road, you kind of start looking, going, damn, I got the same problems. I got the same thing. I got the same things going on. Then you ask a magical question. And is the magical question that everybody asks themselves at some point in your life. Why does this stuff keep happening to me? Why do I keep experiencing the same things over and over and over and over and over again? What is it? Why do people keep doing me like this? Instead of asking, why do people keep doing you like this? Ask yourself, what is it that I do that make this keep happening to me? What do I do in a relationship when it doesn't go right? What did I do? Now, that's not to say that the other person has no blame. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that at least your part of the responsibility is, what did I do? What could I have done better? Is it just what it is, and that's all that it is, and it became what it was supposed to be, and I'm sour about it, and I don't want to move on? Because I don't want to move on, I'm going to gripe, piss, and moan and blame somebody else and that they're the total fault? You're never going to get anywhere like this. Look, a lot of people right now that I know who are actually good friends of mine, long-term friends of mine, so forth and whatnot, I hear them say a lot of times that, man, if only life could be different, if only things could happen for me in a different way, if only I had this break, or if someone gave me an opportunity, or if I wasn't born in this shitty life, or so forth and what it might be. And a lot of times you can look back and you'll see people from, 10, 20, 30, 40 years even, and you look at their life and you see that all they did was aged. But their life is pretty much the same. And they're still doing the same things. They're still blaming the same people. They're still making the same excuses. They're still, and they're not making the changes that they need to make to bring them on a more responsible life. The bottom line is, your life will only grow to the amount of responsibility that you're willing to assume. The more responsibility, the bigger your life becomes. If you don't, and I say if you don't, allow that responsibility to weigh you down. If you weigh it down and you don't look at it and perceive it properly, it will drag you down. It will beat you up. It will leave you in a rabbit hole, and you can only look up and see a little tiny speck of sunlight, but you can't even begin to make the climb to dig out of the hole because you're too tired. You're too exhausted. You've gotten too old. You've gotten too out of shape. You've gotten whatever. But subconsciously, you are weighed down, and you consciously, because of those subconscious creations, beliefs, and thoughts, can't move forward. So you stay stuck. What's the thing you got to do? There's really only one way out of it. If you're really good at just keeping your mouth shut, you just keep your mouth shut and you deal and you suffer and you go through a lot of pain. If not, then what a lot of people end up doing is they blame other people for why they got this taken from them, or they lost this, or they lost that, or whatever it may be. But they never look at what did I do? What didn't I do that caused this to happen? People don't like to look at that because people always want it to be somebody else's fault. They don't want it to be their fault. I was in the martial arts for 30 years. And one of the things, like my hat up here says, is Mushin, no mind. And it's not the only thing I studied. I've studied lots of personal development, mental training courses, and so forth. But the one thing that they normally always have in common is that you are responsible for your creations, thereof or lack of. And that normally thereof or lack of your creations is because of the perceptions that you place into any given situation, personal or professional, and how much responsibility of that do you assume. You'll find most people who assume very low responsibility don't normally create so many results in their life, or at least the results that they wanted. They're getting a whole lot of results they don't want, and they're looking to blame somebody else. It's the blame game. It just happens. So the first thing you have to discover about this is I am not, in any way, shape, or form, I am not a prisoner. I am not a victim. There are no victims. In our minds, there are victims. We are victims in our mind. You know, I was at, oh gosh, where was I at? What was the name of that place? I'm drawing a blank right now, but there was a big meeting. There was lots of different types of people there, lots of people with different types of beliefs, because they were there actually as a meeting so that they could discuss these different beliefs that they had. And I remember one of them, came up like assault and battery and rape and misconduct and so forth and whatnot. And, that's a bad thing. I mean, that my heart just bleeds for anybody who experienced anything like that at all, because that is not cool at all. But actually being a person, a being that experienced all those things done to me at a very early age, I began to realize that for me, I was hearing a lot of people saying that, they were victims and they couldn't do this and they couldn't do that. They couldn't get out of this and they couldn't get out of that. And then, I kind of told my life story. And of course, I've posted many times on Facebook about the things that happened to me, the sexual abuse, the rapes, and so forth, that happened to me when I was younger, and they just asked, they asked me, why don't you feel like that you're a victim too? And I said, because I was never told I was supposed to be one or that I was one. The more that I hold on to a trauma mentally that happened to me at any age, the more it creates a fixed mindset, and I stay right there instead of just dealing with the situation, owning the situation, and realizing, hey, it is what it is. It was what it was, and it's done. It's over, and I got to move forward. And and I know that's hard. I do. I get that. I understand that for some people, dealing with the mental anguish and the mental trauma is very difficult. It's extremely difficult, and it's something they feel like they might never move on from. But you can. I know it's hard. There are mental exercises to help you. There are exercises you can do to help you cope with it. There's exercises you can do to help you come to terms with it, and so that you can properly deal with it, file it away, and move on with your life, so you don't have to stay there and feel trapped or victimized or anything of that nature. Because like I said, good things happen to bad people. Good things happen to good people. Bad things happen to good people. Bad things happen to bad people. It's the way it is, but you can't stay stuck. You can't stay stuck, because remember, wherever your mind fixates, wherever your mind places all of its attention into, you will stay frozen in that time. So the body may age, you may go on biologically, and you're getting older and you're getting older and you're getting older, but the mind is froze right there in that time that something really bad and misfortunate happened to you. And because that happened to you, you stay here. But you're still aging. You're still moving 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. But then you look back and you can see that they're still fixated right here where their attention was, instead of dealing with it however they can come to terms to deal with it. And there's a lot of help out there for you to find to help you come to those terms, and so that you can move on. So liberate yourself. It's okay to step into the spotlight. It's okay to say, hey, this happened, this happened, this happened, and this is how I feel. Don't hold it in. Tell somebody and deal with it, and get help dealing with it, so you don't stay in that fixated mind. You can peace, and you can go and do your thing. You got a lot of great gifts, a lot of great qualities, a lot of great things that the world needs for you to contribute to it in order to make it a better place. They need you to show up, and they need you to show out. And that's really and truly the way that it's going to be for anybody and everybody. That's just a very, very crucially important thing. So when you, geez, I can remember about 12, 14 years ago, I went through a very big state of serious depression. And God, man, I really, outside that, I had a really bad back, and it was prohibiting me from being able to do the things that I wanted to do. Like, for an example, have you ever did a lot of bicep curls, and pretty soon that bicep starts burning, and no matter how bad you want to, you got to drop that dumbbell because you cannot do another curl? That's the way my back was. I could probably walk 5 to 6 minutes. And then my back muscle, my lower back muscle would just crump up like that, just crumble up, and it would cramp up. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going down. It doesn't matter where I was. I mean, if I was standing in line, which I tried to avoid like the plague, if doing martial arts, didn't matter what I was doing or where I was, store, didn't matter. I'm going down, because I've got to sit down and I got to release that pressure off my back. And it ballooned me to 419 pounds. Yep. And doctors were giving me pain pills, muscle relaxers. They gave me something else too, and I forgot what it was actually. But anyway, all this stuff didn't work, and I certainly didn't like the way it made me feel. I was just like, felt like I was constantly high or something like that. It wasn't good. So on the off chance, another doctor that I went to see, he said that let's try Lexapro. I said, what's Lexapro? He goes, it's an antidepressant. I said, I don't need an antidepressant. And he goes, no. He goes, the average dose for Lexapro is 20 milligrams a day. 20. That sounds like a lot. He goes, it is, but I want to put you on 5. 5 milligrams? He goes, yes. He goes, it's a quarter of a full dose, but you don't need it for depression. You need it for your back pain, because I think back pain's causing you depression. I think this is working in reverse mode. And he goes, and I can't guarantee it'll work, but I had heard at some time that it's the back pain is making you depressed. But he says, I heard from a couple people that a low dose of Lexapro took the back pain away, and they didn't need anything else. So I'm like, hey, at this point, what do I got to lose? So he gave me the 5 milligrams. I started taking it, and I swear, this is a funny story, but I swear I'm not exaggerating it at all. About 3 or 4 days after being on the Lexapro, I'm like, I was getting up and I was moving around, and I was like, man, my back doesn't really, I just know, I didn't know at that point. I didn't think about my back. I was like, hey, I feel pretty good, blah, blah, blah. Everything's all right, and for some reason I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go for a walk. I'm going to give this a try. So I went down to my favorite park. It was just right down just right down the road from my house. And I went down there, and I was on the trails, and the trails go up and down. They got little hills and goes up and down, up and down. Great place to walk. And a lot of beautiful trees and whatnot. And I was probably about 15 minutes into my walk, and all of a sudden it hit me while I was walking. I was like, what did I forget? I mean, I was really honestly thinking that I forgot something at home. Did I turn the stove off? Did I leave the refrigerator door open? Did I leave the front door unlocked? I mean, I was going through actual things in my mind while I was walking, because I didn't even register at that moment. I wasn't feeling any pain. But the pain of my back had become so consistent with me, because it was there every minute of every hour of every day of my life for years. And my subconscious brain was still registering, But my conscious brain was like, hey, what's going on over here? What did we forget? What did we forget? What I forgot was my old nemesis, the back pain, gone. And that first day, I went out and I walked for a whole hour. I was blown away. I actually remember finding a quiet place and sitting down and crying because that back pain was gone and how it had hindered me. For years and years, it had hindered me, and stopped me from participating in life the way that I really wanted to be able to participate in the life. But at some point, you end up getting enough pain that you just like, you know what? I'm not going to stay in this pain any longer, even though it hurts. It's become comfortable to me, and I'm stagnating and I'm dying. I need you to move on. I need to find a way to fix this or a way to get around it so I can exercise. And that Lexapro, that 5 milligrams, that little 25% of a normal dose is all I needed. Took all my back pain away because it changed the way my brain perceived pain. I was blown away. So the doctor was like, yep. He goes, I'm going to start giving this little low dose to all my customers and have them taking it, all my patients, to all my patients until such time they don't need it. And they could do it themselves because they lost a lot of weight. And of course, the more weight you lose off your gut, it takes the pressure off your back. So that's how he was kind of formulating it and working at it. And you know what? It enabled me to lose 140 pounds simply by starting to exercise again. And then, of course, when I started exercising, I'm like, well, you might want to change your diet too, because you can't out-train a bad diet. No matter how you want to do it, you can't out-train a bad diet. You can get away with it for a while, like if you're really young and you're really active and you're burning lots of calories and you're just like, you're a little ant. You're just all over the place, man. But ultimately it catches up with you and you slow down and you're like, all of a sudden you're starting to gain weight and you're like, what the hell? So remember, you can't out-train a bad diet. And it's denial to think you can, because you can't. So if you're facing a problem in your personal life or you're facing a problem in your business life, the first thing you must do to become a wizard in life is change the perception of how you are looking at your problem. If your problem is always growing bigger, or it's always staying where it is and it's getting stronger and it's getting more and more and more of your daily attention, but the things you do are the same old things you used to do to try to solve the problem, even if you think you've tried everything, you haven't. There are still things you got to do, but you got to be ready to emotionally hear them. You got to be ready to emotionally listen to them, and got to be ready to emotionally deal with them, and to get the energy to put into the scenario so that you can become at least as big as the problem. So the problem's here, and so you can neutralize, at the minimum, neutralize the problem. I prefer you just become bigger than the problem and allow the problem not to exist, because you changed your fixed mindset, your regular old way of constantly trying to deal with a problem you have that won't go away. You got to change how you look at it. You got to change what you do, because my back pain that I had at that time, emotionally, it was affecting me so badly that I was behaving the way that I physically felt, the way that it was creating an impression, that the back pain was creating an impression in my mind and in my body, was making me feel like crap. And I was in pain 24 hours a day. It just never went away. And so I was responding, I was acting how you would normally act if you had a crippling back pain. when my doctor took the look at my L3s and L4s, he says, I don't know how you're walking because you have some damage here. And I equate that to those years in the martial arts of doing what's called yukimi. And that's where you fall and you hit the ground, and you're doing flips and side flips and all types of stuff like that. And I think that might have been where I picked it up. May not have been. Could have just been something natural. We don't really know at this point. But anyway, I did. So it's important that you don't allow your body to dictate how you're going to behave daily. Because if you allow your body and the way that you feel to dictate how you're going to behave that day, you're always going to behave how you feel. And you can't make changes that way. You can only make real changes when you behave how you think, or behave how you believe that you are and want to be. And you've got to hold that long enough for the brain to make the pathways and the dendrites to be able to create and to connect this new pathway that you're going. And eventually the brain, scientific, I'm not saying it, look it up, the brain will grow the dendrites and the things that you need in order to continue behaving this way, and it will continue to create and grow and regroup and recreate. If you decide to go higher and higher and higher, the brain will continue to create these pathways for you so that you can get to these upper limits. Or to these upper creations that you want to do, and get you out of your old boundaries. Because you got to remember that even I went through the denial for a while, because it was kind of hard to grip it for a little while, that, man, I really do create my own realities. I really do experience my own realities, and then assign those realities from those experiences the meanings. But when you grab the piece of yarn and you pull it a little harder and a little longer from the ball, you begin to realize that you can unravel reality. And that simply means that you no longer allow your experiences to dictate how a reality will play out for you. Instead, you will dictate how the reality plays out, and you will create the experiences that you need to make that reality play out for you. It's hard to do. If it was a simple thing, everybody would do it, everybody be teaching it, and it would be, a world phenomenon. However, though, in a lot of the ancient texts and even the newer programs, there's a few of them I've been involved with that also teaches that very thing. It's pretty esoteric. It's pretty unique, and it does take an enormous amount of dedication. And some people's like, God, I can't dedicate to a different way because I'm already too tired. I already hurt too much. I've already got a broke foot. I've already got back pain. I've already got headaches 24 hours a day. I've already got a sickness. I've already got blah, 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 blah. And the more they sit there and say that, although what they're saying is true, there's no denial from me about that. There's like my back pain. It was very, very, very real to me. It still is, However, though, there are ways, no matter what it is, as long as you don't keep trying the same old things the same old way. But before any medicine can work, before anything else can start, before you can find any new discoveries, before you can create your experiences to the desired reality that you want, and there's a secret to that. Maybe I should stop right there and tell you that real quick. One of the reasons why, if you leave yourself open to the concept of, I will have a reality, and then I experience that reality, and then from that reality, from that experience, I assign a reality, a meaning to that experience I just had. Now, when you do that, the brain instantly sets your brain thermometer to be at that level, okay? This is the heat index, the wind chill factor, whatever you want. This is where the brain keeps you. However, if you do it reverse way and you create your reality by designing the experiences that you want from that reality, the brain will go to work creating those new dendrites and all those things in the brain that will create that trail for that to happen, because that experience that you're now receiving causes all types of hormonal shifts in your brain. It sends out all types of chemicals, hormones, giving you a reward. Because remember, nature endowed us with a very simple thing. Whenever we do something right, whenever we get something right, whenever we do something right, the brain releases dopamine and serotonin. And our brain is like, it's like, I mean, it's like bees in a hive. It's happy, it's buzzing, it's got its reward, and nature set everyone's brain up to work that way so that we would continue to push and to go forward and to make things happen, to have goals and to realize them and set them and make them happen. That's our reward system. Someone tells you, great job, man, pat you on the back, you feel great. All right. You say you're going to do something and you do it, you feel great. You make a plan, you execute the steps to get it done, and it happens, you feel great. So if you're going to be a wizard, and if you're going to be a wizard in life, you've got to make this correction, and you've got to make this correction right now. And if you make this one correction right now, it will change your entire life. And that simply is create the experiences that will coordinate with the reality that you want to experience. And that's how we normally do it. We don't want to do it that way. I mean, let me be more clear. I think I messed that one up a little bit. So let me go back. Stop allowing your experiences to dictate how you assign the outcome, the meaning to your reality. Because then you get stuck, and that's what creates dogma. Every time we experience that problem or something very similar to it, we go right back to the same old thinking. Oh, yeah, this is what it does. This is what happened. This is how I do, and this is what I do, and this is how I feel, and this is how I act because of this is how I feel. Remember, the value of anything, whether it be something objectively, and we'll just separate subjective and objective for a moment, that whatever's out there and you look at it, you begin to think, okay, well, what really determines the value of this thing to me is the experience that it gives to me. And whatever the experience is that it gives to me and provides for me and how it makes me feel, that's it. So determine the reality that you want. Assign the experiences that you must have in order to create and to feel and to behave in that way. The brain will adapt. It will create new for you so that you can continue to climb higher and higher and higher, because the brain is going to do what the brain is programmed to do. And the only way you break brain patterns is through consistency of changing the action that you take, and by changing the perceived experience that the brain is associating with whatever it is that you're doing. That's why a lot of people stay in painful relationships way longer than they should have. That's one reason why people have failing businesses way longer than they should have, because they're stuck in the pain. The pain's become manageable. And if the pain is manageable, and if the way to get to your transformation you perceive to be too hard and too difficult, you won't do it. You'll stay stuck in the pain. You'll stay right there where it is instead of moving on to a bigger transformation, because you believe where you are at is better being stuck and managing the pain than it actually is to move onward and get the reward, the transformation, the creation that you really want from it. And a lot of people who are stuck at this level, you can always determine who they are, because they will always consistently complain. Them complaining is how they are dealing with not being stuck in the pain, but what they're really expressing to you is their disapproval of themselves, allowing themselves to not deal with this pain, not to rid themselves of this pain, and to move forward, because at some level, at somewhere, now I had to accept it too, they stopped. It got too hard. It became too much. The last attempt or two, like with my back pain, wiped me out. And I just surrendered. And therefore, my whole reality after that was dedicated and predicated on that experience. When I learned to change the experience and design the experiences, I didn't think about creating a goal and then going after it. I thought about, what experience do I need to create to make this goal happen? Because I knew once my brain caught on, my brain was going to release the chemicals and everything that I need to make that happen. Because the brain follows experience. That's what the brain follows. It follows experience because it wants its reward. It wants the dopamine, it wants the serotonin and all the other chemicals and hormones it releases. Because that stuff is always released, designed by nature to be a reward. And even complaining about a problem that you don't release yourself from to the brain is an action. The brain doesn't separate. The brain doesn't separate between what is real and what is imagination or what is an experience. To the brain, it's the same thing. So the brain's like, oh, he's dealing with it, man. He's complaining. He's bitching and moaning. He's going to be okay. Yeah, he's all right. He's taking care of it. Leave him alone. Start getting all the little dopamine, little serotonin, feel good, whatnot. And the brain, the Mother Nature just designed it that way. And so how we think we're dealing with a problem is actually completely inaccurate to how we need to be dealing with a problem. We're doing the exact opposite. And I only say this now because I have a 20 years worth of experience in doing this stuff myself and how it works and actually going through it myself. I would never try to put a philosophical point of view on this without hardcore evidence and without going through it, because you can only grow through what you go through. And if you're not willing to grow through certain things for whatever reason that is, you're not going to get through it. You're always going to stay right there, and it's always going to be a problem. So I've taken up enough of your time. I appreciate it. That was class 1. I'll be back tomorrow with class 2 at 6 o'clock. And we're going to be talking about how perception sustains the reality that you have been creating for yourself and experiencing, and how to unravel that whole problem and situations with the things in your life, sickness, relationships, your personal business, your business, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You are sustaining that reality to keep getting the results that you're getting, even if the results you're getting is not the results you want. And there's a way you have to go about that in order to reverse that, as I talked about a little here tonight, in order to make that not happen any longer. So listen, everyone is going through something out there. Everyone's got problems. Give somebody a hug. Let them know they're okay. They're good. It'll do you a world of good too. All right. Give somebody a hug. Until then, be good to yourself, be good to others. And I'll be back tomorrow, live here, Facebook, with part 2 of this 12-part series, all about the mind and how to get from where you are to where you want to be, the safest, easiest, fastest way to do it. All right. Everybody have a good night, and I will see you again here tomorrow.